Thank you so much for joining us today. Obviously, the weather's definitely taken a turn for the nicest weather at the moment. So I know where I am, it's glorious sunshine. So I hope everyone else has glorious sunshine as well, wherever they are. And again, huge apologies for a couple of weeks ago. We had some IT issues, and unfortunately, and I'll touch upon this again, Wendy's still having some IT issues. So what she will need to do, unfortunately, is that she's going to turn her camera off because there's a delay with her speaking and obviously her being on the camera. So first of all, please do say a big hello to us. We'd love to know where you are joining us from today. And I can't believe it is Wednesday, Tuesday. I'm getting so confused with the days. Tuesday already. So please do say a big hello to us. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar today. So if you do have any questions, you will note on the bottom that there is a Q&A section. So pop in your questions in there. And I will obviously present these questions to Wendy at the end of the presentation. Brilliant to sort of see so many of you joining us. And Wendy, a very warm welcome to you, because this is the first webinar that we have held together, which is very exciting. So a big warm welcome to you. A bit of an introduction around Wendy. So Wendy is a burnout and sleep expert in the UK, as well as being a senior HR professional and coaching psychologist in the Nedbank Private Wealth International. Wendy, you've had a really successful career within HR, and you sort of worked for some really great firms like Cisco and Accenture and Barclays as well, before obviously moving into a more psychologist aspect, sort of improving that HR realm, and obviously looking at your change management skills as well. So really excited for you to be able to join us today. And as I've mentioned, unfortunately, Wendy is having a couple of IT issues. So I am going to be flicking through the slides on her behalf. She's going to be having her camera turned off because there is a delay with her talking and obviously the sound coming through. So apologies in advance. But for those who don't know me, I am Elspeth and I'm part of the CNC Search team. I specialise within that HR, people and talent realm, something that I'm very passionate about. And obviously with the webinar that we're hosting today, which is Burn Bright, Not Out, it is sort of very topical conversation. I know, from the HR professionals that I was engaging with, there was big talks around burnout during the pandemic. We obviously saw this huge recruitment surge coming off sort of the back of the pandemic. And then obviously we're seeing a different type of burnout that's happening now as well. So it's always a continuous conversation. And one that is an ever-changing landscape as well from that side. So, Wendy, I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm going to pop myself on mute at the same time. So hopefully this will all go to plan.
I'm pretty sure it will, Elspeth, and thank you very much for arranging this. And welcome, everyone, and thank you very much for taking time out your busy schedules to join us today. I would like to take this opportunity to ask everyone to come here with an open mind and please take part in some of the activities. So there's a couple of activities today, so it would be great if you had a pen and a piece of paper to note things down. Because today we're going to explore a number of aspects of burnout to make sure that we cover different ways of looking at it, because there is the traditional way of yoga, meditation, but I'm going to take you on a slightly different journey today, and that will give you a new insight into perhaps how burnout happens and how you can prevent it, because what we want to do is get right at the early stages before it turns into a 6-month recovery. You can recover in 4 to 6 weeks if you identify the symptoms early, which we will explore today. Okay, if you can move to the next slide, please, Elspeth, that'd be great. So, the Prevent Burnout Map, the next slide that we're going to talk about, really what we're looking to do is to talk about, Elspeth, have you managed to move it to the next slide? Apologies.
Yes, I have, Wendy.
It's just my screen that's taking a long time. That's fine, so no problem. So first of all, what I want to talk about today is the science. What's the science behind burnout? And there was a report that recently came out in January 2024. It's the Mental Health UK Burnout Report. You can get a copy of that for free online. And it gave us some stark information about burnout and what is going on. And burnout is costing the UK economy billions. And I'll tell you why that's really important to you, because there are some key indicators that show it's costing your business significantly more than you could imagine. Then what I'm going to talk about is perception, because believe it or not, how you perceive the world and how you perceive burnout will alter how severe it is and how long it takes to recover from it. Quite often when people get burnout, they project outwards and everybody else is causing it. Don't get me wrong, that is an element of that. However, we also have what we do to ourselves, how we beat ourselves up, the things, how you react to what's happening in front of us. All those things come in and contribute to burnout. Then, but the most important part, I'm also going to talk about how you prevent burnout. So what steps can you take? What's the most important thing to focus on? And how can you get better quicker than ever before, or quicker than anyone else? And there are a few things you can do that can really accelerate recovery for you or for your team. So let's start exploring that a little bit more. So let's start with the science. So if you can move to the next slide, Elspeth, that'd be great. So what we know currently in the UK, that 20% of people are experiencing burnout. So 20% of your workforce are experiencing burnout. And interestingly, the research also shows the vast majority of them are your high performers. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the 80-20 model or the 7-20-10 model. Basically, 20% of your output that is really worth anything is in that 20%, and the other 80% is much lower value. Just like that in business is the burnout ratio for your employees. Your high-performing managers and your high-performing staff are significantly more likely and significantly more susceptible to burnout than anyone else. These are the people that make you the most money, deliver the best service, and are your future potential senior leaders in the organisation. And they are far more susceptible to burnout. So that is, I find that a really interesting factor. And also, and particularly in financial services, a lot of people have been mandated back to the office after COVID. And what you'll see is that number increases by 10% when you're mandated back to the office. Therefore, agile working has an element of prevention and burnout. And that can help people manage their workloads and focus a bit better. So looking inwards to our organisations, when we look at people burnout, or people who are sick, or people who are working really hard and are running towards burnout, even within your team or within your organisation, now we know that it's a very, very expensive way to lose staff. We want to do something about that. So again, this is all included in that burnout report, the Mental Health UK report, and I really recommend you have a look at that, because it's really going to give you some detailed insights into some of the work they have done. And as I mentioned previously, quite often people look external for burnout, but what I'm going to show you today is the internal aspect of burnout and how you can self-regulate and self-manage in order to understand that you are causing some of your own burnout. And if you only respond differently to your external environment, you can reduce the significance, occurrence, and recovery significantly. So let's look at a bit more science before we move on to the perception next. So if we can move to the next slide, Elspeth, that'd be great. Now we're going to look at, what does burnout actually look like? So what we can see here is burnout. The top layer of burnout is what you'll find is people start to work harder. And this is why it's your high performers generally that are captured in that 20%. They work harder, they can push through, they can work through this. They know they've got this and they can just work harder, longer hours and deliver better than ever because that is what they've done before. Their sleep starts to degenerate at this point. It's not significant enough that they will really notice, but they may lose 20 to 30 minutes a night. And that will probably be at the cost of their deeper sleep. They become hyper-focused. Now, they were focused before, but they become hyper-focused, slightly on edge, answering emails immediately, doing everything immediately, turning things around at an accelerated rate. And that is level 1. So if you can think of your team for a few moments, and think about the people in your team who might be in level 1 burnout. So just take 2 minutes to write down a couple of names of people in your team or in your business that you have noticed are working harder, could be sleeping less, and have got even more focused, maybe slightly on edge. So just write down the names of those, a couple of people, and hold on to that for me. Then the next level down, which I call level 2, and this is when it starts to get a bit more serious and will take a little bit longer to recover. Reduced patience, snapping at people, getting angry quicker, moving to resentment, annoyance significantly quicker than they ever have done before. Reduced trust. The language they use, they don't trust their colleagues, they don't trust other departments. If they start talking like that, you know burnout is starting to set in. Then what they do is they mentally distance themselves from the organisation, therefore reducing psychological safety. Again, with your pen and paper, just take a few moments to write down 2 or 3 names of people you know. They could be friends, family, who are at stage 2, level 2, that more reduced trust, psychological safety reducing, and reduced patience with people. I'll just give you a minute to just think about that and write those names down. And you might be in that list. So if you're in that list, write your name down too, please. Okay, so we've covered level 1. That's a kind of 4 weeks recovery, 4 to 6 weeks recovery. Level 2, you're looking at 6 to 12 weeks recovery. Unless somebody is very self-aware, they can do it much quicker. But let's look at level 3. Level 3 is exhaustion, because by now your sleep, you're getting 5 to 6 hours a night, and the quality of that sleep has diminished dramatically. You will be far more cynical about your job, about the organisation and the teams that you work with. In fact, you'll probably be becoming quite negative at this point. So you've gone from being a positive person who believes they can take on the world to somebody who just doesn't care. Psychological safety has completely gone. Your engagement scores are gone, and that employee experience is now no longer enjoyable for them. They are mentally detached. They don't want to come into work, and there's a good chance they're taking more sick leave. Their productivity is probably reduced significantly. And someone who was, for example, worked for your organisation for a couple of years, performing brilliantly, then all of a sudden there's a big dip, that's when you really want to start asking questions. Is it the organisation contributing to this? Is it the individual? And what can we do to bring that person back? Quite often it will happen to managers and your senior managers, people who are fundamental to your leadership roles, because they're trying to juggle multiple priorities and teams. Again, just thinking about that group. Write down the names of a couple of leaders or senior managers in your organisation that are at level 3. They've maybe spoken to you, or you can see a big change in their behaviour. Just write a couple of names down of senior managers or leaders in your organisation where you've observed this behaviour. And you might also be in that group. So be honest here. Remember, no one's looking at your answers and no one is judging you. Okay, what I want you to do now is I want you to look at that list of people. The people at level 1, the people at level 2, and then the people at level 3. How important are they to your organisation? Ask yourself that. What would happen if they went off work sick for 6 months? What would it cost the organisation? Financially, their influence, how important they are to the business, the contribution they make. Knowing that to backfill them would take somebody 6 months to catch up to where they are. Just think about that and the significance that would have in your organisation. Now, look at those people and times them by 10. And those people are also people who are potentially going to be burning out. And imagine what the implications of that. So, I know this sounds doom and gloom. Trust me, it's not all bad. It's going to get better and better. Because you can prevent this. You can stop this. And there is a way to help people. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a bit more detail, just to give you that understanding of what you can do and how you can support people to prevent this. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at perception. So Elizabeth, if you could just take us to the perception slide, that'd be great. So now we understand the science. We know the signs of burnout are levels 1, 2 and 3. Let's start to explore one of the biggest contributing factors to burnout. Interesting, your perception has a big impact on burnout. How you perceive stress will alter the hormones that are pumped into your body. Is stress a challenge or is it a burden? Will alter how you react to it biochemically and psychologically. How you react to how somebody treats you, how you talk yourself into a state of anxiety or worry or panic, all of these perception factors will alter how you react physically and psychologically to what's happened in front of you. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of fun activities to test your perception. What this will do will demonstrate your ability to observe and to listen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little listening exercise. So Elizabeth, if you can move to slide 6 and play in a few moments, I'm going to ask you to play the sounds. So what I'm going to do, if you get your pen and paper ready, we're going to play a football chant in a few moments. Now that football chant, they're saying something. I want you to listen carefully, and we're going to give you some ideas of what they might be saying, and then I want you to write down what you think they've said. So we're going to play a sound bite of fans chanting. You're going to see a number of statements, and I want you to pick which statement you think that the group has been chanting. Okay, Elizabeth, if you can, has anyone got any questions actually before we start? If you just want to put something in the chat, if you're not sure about anything, please let us know. You're just going to listen to the chanting football ground. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Excellent. So just take a minute to think about that. And which statement did you hear? So you had Bart Simpson bouncing, rotating pirate ship, lobsters in motion, that is embarrassing, I'm chasing Martian, that isn't my receipt. Okay. In the chat of Zoom, please let us know which one you think that they stated. Excellent, lots of fantastic statement here. Yeah, brilliant. So that isn't my receipt. That is embarrassing. Fabulous. Each suggestion changed my perception of what was being said. Fabulous. Thank you, Hannah. That is embarrassing. Excellent. Yeah, and when you looked at the screen, it changed what you heard. How can that be? How can it be that what you saw on the screen changed what you heard? Now, these are little cues. Somebody heard the Bart Simpson one, so that's excellent. What they were actually saying was, that is embarrassing. Okay, and they were chanting it at a player. That is embarrassing, because they were not playing very well. But when you read something and you listen at the same time, it can alter dramatically what you hear. Now, you're in a meeting, somebody is saying something really important, and you're reading a negative email. What's going to happen to what you hear? What you've just learned there, when you're reading something different, it alters what you hear. That is happening day in, day out in work. And it's great to actually think about that and focusing. And why that happens is our brain has limited capacity for what it can focus on. So being in the room, present and mindful is essential to notice these things. And not jumping to judgment quickly. But we're going to explore that a little more in a few moments. We're going to do another little perception exercise, and this one is far more based on your visual capability. So we've tested a blend of sound and a blend of looking at information. But let's look at this video to see how you perceive what's happening in the video. Elspeth, when you're ready, if you can put the National Geographic video on for me, please. So again, just look at what's happening in the video and see if you can see anything unusual.
Today we're going to play a game specifically designed to test your spatial awareness. Meet the Brain Games Double Dutch team. Now, what does jumping rope have to do with the brain? Double Dutch requires off-the-chart spatial awareness. Today, these kids are going to help us test yours. For this game, all you have to do is keep track of the number of times that either of the girls in green jumps. You'll count each time one of them lands a jump, like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
As you can see, these jumpers are pretty quick on their feet, so you're going to have to pay attention to keep up. When the whistle blows, start counting. Ready? Go. How many jumps did the green team make?
Okay, excellent. So in the chat, can you let me know how many jumps the green team made? Oh, the video lagged. Sorry, Elkie, about that. The video was lagging a little bit. Sorry about that, everyone. The joy of videos. Okay, no problem. Can I just check something? Did anyone notice anything unusual in the video? In the chat, let me know if you noticed anything that was unusual. The rooster costume, yes. So you spotted the chicken coming in, doing the funky chicken right in the middle of the jumping, yeah. There was lots of activity happening, definitely was. But a chicken literally came in to the middle and did the funky chicken in a full chicken suit. Okay, Siobhan, no problem. No problem. Apologies if you find that this is not helping, so apologies. Okay, so what I would say here is there were a couple of things that happened there. So one was the funky chicken in the background. And because we told you to focus on how many times the green t-shirts jumped, that's what you began to focus on. So because you were concentrating so much on that, that meant that you didn't notice the other things that were going on. So there was a few things that happened there. So one, the funky chicken. Secondly, the background of the whole video went from blue to red, or red to blue. It completely shifted colour at the back. And then halfway through the video, the people who were holding the skipping ropes changed. So just think about that for a minute. So there was a chicken, the back screen for the whole video changed, and the skipping rope people who were holding the ropes changed halfway through the video. And what was interesting about that is people were so concentrating on one thing that they didn't observe those other things happening. And if you just think about how busy the workplace is and how we've got competing priorities, how it could be easy to misperceive something or not see what's really happening, because we're so busy trying to understand everything that's going on, because the cognitive load in an office is quite a lot. There's lots of noise, there's lots of people walking around, there's team activities, there's things going on. And it's mindful when something happens to be considerate, that it's good to be curious, it's good to ask questions rather than jumping to judgment. Because what we've learned today, based on the video we've just watched, is that people can only really identify the information they're specifically focusing on at the time. And it's a good case for being present and mindful as much as you can in the workplace. I know it's not always possible, but it will allow you to make the right decisions and the right judgments. And we're looking at this perception thing to understand, because I know when I am in a meeting, I watch a presentation with 10 people, and we all leave that presentation, and I'll say to everybody, what did you learn from that presentation? And I will get 10 different answers. because whatever people have decided they want to see in that presentation, they quite often see. Therefore, it's important that you think about that and keep curious. So when you think something has happened, ask questions, explore, and make sure it did happen that way to give you the opportunity to feel more comfortable with what's happening. And again, it's just thinking about, if we can move to the slide 8, Elspeth, that'd be great. You're not alone with not observing what happened there. So 40% of people on average see the chicken. Less than 3% see the background colour change. And virtually no one notices the skipping rope, people holding the skipping rope changing. Because it's very easy to get distracted, it's very easy to be busy, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all do it. And it's training your brain to sometimes stop and think, okay, I just observed something happened. I'm just going to ask a few questions to ensure that I've got what happened right. And it's allowing yourself, without judgment, without harshness, being really kind to yourself, your team and others, and trying to explore what really happened there. It's like when you're conducting an investigation into something that's happened at work. You check all the facts, you'll stay curious, you'll make sure you really understand what's going on, and that allows you to make a sound judgment. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that much for everything, but it's good to stay present and try to understand what's going on in front of you. If you can move to slide 9, Elspeth, that would be great. And I don't know about you, but I always ask the question, so what? Why do I need to bother my perception? Why do I need to bother being in the room and being mindful? Why does that matter? Because wherever your attention might be or how your perceptions are working may influence the judgments and decisions you make about other people. And although your best intentions are in place, we want to make sure that we are really checking that that's what happened before we react to a situation, being curious, staying calm, thinking things through. I don't know, I hear lots of people saying, I'm going to sleep on what I think happened, wake up the next morning with a fresh pair of eyes rather than immediately reacting. Because what can happen is we can unfortunately label people poor performers and burn them out without even knowing we're doing it, because we've got the wrong impression. So somebody tells us that somebody's a poor performer, we then put those contact lenses on, poor performer contact lenses when we interact with that person. Because what's very normal and very, very, very common is when somebody tells you something, when that person walks up to you, your internal dialogue comes out with what that person has just said to you. And that internal chatter we have, that voice inside our head, can sometimes cause that. And we have to step back from that and go look at it objectively. Is that true? Let's get curious, let's explore and have our own experience with that individual so that we know and we can feel secure that that's the right information. A lot of people, I know that this perception thing, it feels like it's going to be hard work, but you know what? There's a really easy way to do it, and the really easy way is not to multitask. Yeah, I know that I'm a woman, I always get told I can multitask, but I am not a good multitasker. I used to think I was, but I'm not. I really need to give situations of where we're judging people or making decisions about people, because that's inevitable in our jobs, particularly when you get more senior. I get more curious and trust my instincts less, particularly when I'm multitasking. So when I'm dealing with people, I try to give it all my attention. I know that's not always possible, but try to do your best, because we want to really make seriously good decisions. Okay. So now we know that the science behind burnout, we know that we need to really get curious and think about being mindful and focusing on what we're doing when we're dealing with people and making decisions about people's futures or decisions about people's performance. We want to be in the room. We want to be there as much as we can. So if you could just move to the next slide for me, Elspeth, and I'll talk you through, and you can just click all the way through. So I'm going to answer the why would you bother remain focused, because I have talked about that quite a lot. You know those water cooler moments that everybody missed when we all had to stay at home? Well, what can often happen at these water moments, cooler moments or coffee moments, are completely innocent and completely unconscious. There is no blame here. There is no judgment here. There is just how many times I'm observing this happening when I'm sitting next to the coffee machine. So sometimes I'll spend the day at the coffee machine or the day next to the water cooler just to listen to the interactions that happen in organisations. And I'm specifically asked sometimes to do that. So people toddle up, and people are beautifully clever at asking the right questions. So, for example, you might say after this presentation, did you see Wendy's presentation? That was interesting, wasn't it? And then they'll wait for you to react. And then you will say what was good, what could have been better, and then they will home in on what could be better. Okay? And then they channel you down a path about an individual, and they don't really say very much, but they get you to say it by channeling that discussion in that particular way. And sometimes what happens is that can turn into gossip and rumours in an organisation, and it will alter perceptions of how people view that individual that you've talked about. And again, if we think about it, when that person walks up to you, what's the first thing that's going to pop into your head? And again, water cooler moments are very innocent, but it's thinking about being intentional about the information you've received. They're going to happen, but again, if you stay curious and mindful, people tell me things all the time, and I'll go, thank you for that, and then I will test and validate whether that's true or not, because in my role, I can really have a detrimental effect on people's careers, the future of the organisation, and where they go within the business. So it's not perfection, it's just doing the best to be present, particularly when you're dealing with people. And again, you're doing the best you can each day, and that is good enough. And what I'm hoping we've done today is just started to make you think about things just a little bit differently and ramping up that curiosity. Even if it's by 5% and you don't multitask, you reduce it by 5%, that's a huge benefit to the organisation and to you. It's not about being perfect, it's definitely about just best effort, doing the best you can each day, because you're going to have good days and days where it works and days where it doesn't, and that's okay. It's genuinely okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to being a bit more about prevention, you'll be glad to know. So Elizabeth, if you could move to slide 11, please, that would be excellent. And I know that you're all over the world, so I'm really sorry I picked a London scene. It's probably because where I'm based. But what we've learned so far from science and perception means that we can also have the power to prevent burnout for ourselves and for others. By being curious, by being open to understand what's really going on, and understanding that you can choose to look at things differently. Because when we looked at the video, so the National Geographic video, for example, a lot of you noticed the chicken, some didn't notice the background, and some didn't notice the people changing. There's a kind of mixture there. If you think about that now, if you watch that video again, you're going to notice every single one of those things, because you have new information Therefore, you can see exactly what's going on. And I recommend you do look at that video and you will notice everything that goes on. Colour changes, you will notice every single item because you have new information. And with that new information, you can move forward and prevent your own burnout by being aware that what happens and what you see might need a bit more exploration and being a bit more mindful about what's going on for you. And that will enable you to take control of your burnout and prevent it. So that's the first thing that I'll say. If you can move to slide 12, please, Elspeth. And now I've went for something completely different and not city, but more green space and calm. The key elements to preventing burnout, the foundations of your life, the foundations of our houses, the foundations of business. Sleep is your foundation. So if you are getting good quality sleep every night, nutrition, exercise, and managing yourself are significantly easier. So having a relaxation capability, so things like meditation, yoga, chilling, whatever really calms you down, going for a walk, sitting alone, sitting with people and just listening, all of these things that really help you to relax. It's good to have a routine, 20 to 30 minutes just before you go to bed. So darkening the light, writing down all the worries for work on a piece of paper, closing the book and leaving those worries in the book for the next day. Okay? So writing these things down, putting them away, having a hot drink with no caffeine, and having a set structure to improve your sleep. Now, sleep takes a bit of time to fix. So if you're getting less than, I would say, 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep a night, you probably want to try and increase that. So if you're on 5 hours sleep per night, you want to try and get that up to 5.5 hours, and then to 6, and then to 6.5, and then to 7. You don't go from 5 to 7. Just take it steadily, increasing the amount of sleep you get every week by 15 minutes. That is the solid foundation. And the reason I suggest you write in a book all the worries about work, you're downloading all the things that would race through your mind before you go to bed. Okay? And working on getting rooms darker. Don't look at laptops and phones before you go to bed unless you've switched the blue light off. Making rooms darker and, reducing sound, reducing stimulation. Don't watch movies or TV programs that make you stimulated. Something that just calms you down a little bit. And setting that solid foundation for sleep. And exercise, again, exercise is 20 to 30 minutes of walking, or it doesn't need to be hardcore. Just something that gets you out to nature, or something, if you love the gym, go to the gym. If you like pumping weights, whatever that is, yoga, whatever that is, whatever's your thing, doing that regularly, because quite often when people start to get burned out, they stop these things or reduce them. And nutrition. People quite often start eating beige, fast, quick foods rather than making things. And I'm not saying you should make everything from scratch every day, but there are healthy choices you can make. There's loads of information out there about this. Maybe a bit too much, but again, you know yourself, good, 15% protein, the vast majority of your plate being vegetables, and the smaller part of your plate being beige items. And sometimes you're just going to have pizza, sometimes you're just going to have chili food, sometimes you're just going to have takeaway, no problem, as long as it's not every night. All about these balances. And I don't know about you, but I tend to find eating good food easier when I've slept well, and exercise easier when I've slept well. And that's why I always talk about foundation being your sleep. The exercise and nutrition being the pillars of your house, the walls, and then the roof being your ability to manage your mind. So I'm going to say a couple of things, and I just want you to listen to how your mind diagnose what I've said. So just sit comfortably in your wherever you're sitting. If you can close your eyes, please do. If you can't, because you're at work and it might look a bit strange, that's okay. I'm going to say a couple of things, and I want you to notice what your internal dialogue tells you as I say them. The moon is cheese. The stars are bursts of gas burning bright in the sky. The sun is an illusion and doesn't burn really. Okay, so just take a note of what your internal dialogue said, and you don't need to tell us, just keep that for yourself. And what that means is your mind will always quite often interject, and sometimes it's sound, sometimes it's pictures. It will vary dramatically in what it presents. But it's good for you to not constantly monitor it, but be aware, particularly when you're making decisions about yourself and other people. So managing your mind is basically hearing what you hear, accepting it might not be true, and it might be true, getting curious, asking questions, being in the room when you're making decisions. Again, these things is how you manage your mind, manage your reaction. So, for example, if your manager says something very abruptly to you, you have the choice to get very upset about it and procrastinate about it all night, or you have the choice to accept. They maybe had an argument with their husband this morning. Their car might have broke down on the way to work, and it hasn't set them up for the best day. So they're a bit short, and the way they've said something, they didn't actually mean it that way. And you can bring it up with them tomorrow. So when you said that yesterday, I perceived that as a bit short. Is that how you meant it? And 9 times out of 10, they will say, no, that is not how I meant it. I'm really sorry. And that's what managing your mind is about. It's not about, I must control every thought. It's okay to accept what comes in, and it's okay to let it go. Just let it filter past, because you can decide to accept that has come your way, and then you can test whether that's correct. It's kind of exciting. It's like being a little adventurer of your own head, but not over-analysing it, because we're busy people. But again, did my judgments make the right decision there? I'll ask some questions. Maybe not right now, because I need to sleep on it. And the next day I'll ask some questions when I've got a good rational head and I feel good about it. And then I can explore, did I take what happened in front of me correctly, or did I take it the wrong way? Because there are some people we might be more sensitive to, understandably, because some people do get bullied. Some people do get burned out by the behaviour of other people, and that is a big factor. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, and neither do I blame individuals. That is absolutely not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is we can do the best we can do for ourselves and for other people in our teams by staying curious as much as we can and being there and listening as much as we can. We won't always get it right, and that's absolutely fine too. We're all just doing our best. But even if we can improve by 3 to 5%, it's going to make a big difference. And that's why I talk about perception a lot when I'm talking about burnout or sleep, because a lot of people I know tell themselves they won't sleep well, therefore they don't, because the anticipation of going to bed makes them tense rather than relax. They lie awake. It's very similar with burnout. If you anticipate it's going to happen and you talk about it as though it's going to happen, 9 times out of 10 it will. And it's checking yourself, and there are external factors contributing to this. be in no doubt about that. The demands of work, the ever-changing priorities, what we're expected to deliver, it's tough sometimes. We have to decide, are we going to let these external factors impact our health, or are we going to take it in our stride, look after ourselves, prioritise our sleep, still work hard, but not harder, not so hard that we burn ourselves out, not so hard that we get tired and we are not giving our best to our people anymore. As managers and leaders, we want to give the best to our people and to the organisation when we're there, but we also want to give best to our family when we're not there. So not one cost but the other, but balancing it out, looking after yourself, making sure you prioritise doing a bit of exercise, eating well when you can, getting sleep, good quality sleep when you can, and being mindful and curious and looking after yourself. Because if you look after yourself, you can look after others. Okay, Elspeth, if we can move to slide 13. So I just thought I would finish my presentation with a really, really nice picture of our lovely puppy and kitten cuddling in together, really chilled and relaxed. Because they have definitely got a lovely sleep routine where they just cuddle into each other. And spending time with people we care about and listening to comedy shows, relaxing, these are all things that can make a huge difference. So if you're having a really crap day, who is the comedian you love that makes you laugh out loud? What TV programme, what movie makes you feel really good about yourself? Do these little things and they make a big difference and you can change your mood. Music, smells, activities can change your mood dramatically. Use these things to your advantage. It won't be perfect, it won't sometimes be pretty, but you're doing your best and that is absolutely enough. If you can just move to the last slide. So thank you everyone for really taking the time to listen to me today. I would really welcome your feedback. I'm really looking to improve this talk and really looking to make this better and more enjoyable for people. So if you want to give Elspeth any feedback after this, or you feel comfortable sharing it in chat, I would really appreciate that, because I'm work in progress. I haven't got it all right. I won't get it all right, but I'm willing to listen, be curious and learn and take everything you say and look at how I can make it better. But any questions or comments, please feel free. Elspeth, I'll hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Wendy. And obviously, I know for me, it's interesting watching that video because I noticed that they changed places whilst they were skipping. Definitely did not notice the chicken. So thank you so much, Wendy. We've actually had quite a few questions come in, so I'm conscious of timing. So I'm probably going to quick fire some of these questions. So the first question is that, what do you do when you see a colleague heading for burnout? And I think specifically around the colleague will not raise it formally or ask for help. So how can you support this person from an HR perspective?
Yeah. So, what I tend to do, because I'm also in HR as well, I tend to do is I tend to have a discussion with the line manager and say to them, look, I know what the key indicators of burnout are. I can see it happening to that person. When they first joined, they didn't behave like that. There's been a slight altercation in behaviour. What do you think is kind of contributing to that? So I kind of raise it with the manager and ask them to raise it with the individual. But I will also, if I think the manager is potentially contributing to that and I know that's really grapevine, I would speak to the individual and just say, I just want to check you're okay. I've noticed some changes in your behaviour in the office and I just want to make sure you're okay. Please feel free to speak to your manager or me if you want to have a chat anytime. And again, approach it in a friendly, non-calm way. Sometimes it's better from the line manager because it's quite scary when HR approaches you. So try that angle first. Or who's their best friend? speak to their best friend and get them to ask them as well.
Of course, thank you. And then I guess another question is, sometimes with obviously early mornings and late nights, it's quite hard to obviously avoid burnout. So where do we as individuals then draw the line to be like, okay, actually, I now need to sort of reserve the next few days for rest?
Yeah, you know, it's only you know where to draw the line for you, but you know yourself, your limitations, right? Because you probably already worked yourself to them before, had to take time to settle back and go and start again. For what I would say is, if you're doing 7 to 7, 5 days a week, you really need to have the most chilled weekends possible. Okay, and I know that is reality for some people. But what you want to do is don't be driving kids and partners and friends and families and members all over the place all weekends, right? You need at least one day where you don't do a great deal. If your house gets a little bit messy, it doesn't matter. If they don't go to 20 activities that day, it won't matter, right? Give yourself some time to relax. The things you love. What TV program just, it's so wonderful to watch. You laugh out loud. Watch 5 of them. Do those things that are important to you. Look after you, and everything else falls into place.
Perfect. Thank you, Wendy. So I've got the questions on the other screen, so hence where my eyes are darting between the two. So there's sort of a bit of a taboo around her about burnout and sort of mental health. So how would you advise about approaching the subject internally within the workplace?
Yeah. So how I would definitely approach it is, so reports within your country, because I know you're from all over the world, I find they're really useful. So what I do is I get the reports and I share them with managers and say, I thought you'd be interested in this report, and I started just sending out different reports every month, and it's kind of a, hi there, this has just come out, so we're going to be talking about this when we have our one-to-ones, or I'm going to be doing some webinars about these. And you can use you can share my slides, and you know, I don't mind people using some of my slides and things like that as well. And you know, it's just you know, get some webinars going, send some reports out. Yeah, start to talk about, well, I notice attrition is increasing here, and attrition in the first year, or attrition with our high performers. And that's a good way to start a conversation with a manager, because they don't want to lose their high performers. No one wants to talk about that. Did that answer the question?
I think it did. So yes, thank you, Wendy. Well, brilliant. Look, we'll finish there. And thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I don't know if you can hear, but my dog's just started to cry as well. So thank you so much, Wendy, and apologies again for sort of the rescheduling of this webinar. So as mentioned, we'll follow up with an email, and we will share the slides as well with you all. Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Wendy.